The Starship Odyssey sliced through the interstellar medium, a solitary needle threading the infinite black tapestry.
For 5 years, it had sailed beyond the familiar constellations of Sol, its mission a testament to humanity's insatiable curiosity, to seek, to learn, to find what lay beyond. On board, the hum of the life support systems and the quiet whir of the fusion core were the only constants in the lives of its 6-person crew. Dr. Eris Thorne, head of xenological studies, stared at the swirling nebula displayed on the main viewscreen, its colors shifting like cosmic watercolor. His reflection, gaunt and tired, stared back. 5 years. 5 years of analyzing atmospheric compositions, cataloging extremophiles on barren moons, and charting gravitational anomalies. Groundbreaking work, lauded back on Earth, yet the ultimate prize remained elusive, confirmation that humanity was not alone. The silence of the universe was, at times, deafening.
Anüting, Ares.
Commander Eva Rostova's voice, calm and steady, cut through his thoughts. She stood beside him, arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the same stellar panorama. Unlike Thorne's academic intensity, Rostova radiated quiet authority, the responsibility for the ship and crew etched onto her features. The usual symphony, Commander, Thorne sighed, gesturing towards a secondary screen filled with complex data streams.
Background Radiation, Neutrinoflux, distant pulsar signals. Beautiful, complex, empty. Patience, Doctor.
The Kuiper belt looked empty until we looked closer. This is somewhat larger than the Kuiper belt, Eva. A soft chime interrupted them. Commander, Dr. Thorne, spoke Jax, the ship's integrated AI, its synthesized voice smooth and devoid of inflection. Long-range sensors have detected an anomalous energy signature, bearing 073 Mark 41. Non-natural origin probable. A jolt went through the bridge.
Non-natural.
The words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Define probable, Jax, Rostova ordered, her voice sharpening. Probability estimated at 98.7%, Commander. The signature exhibits patterns inconsistent with known astrophysical phenomena. It is faint, intermittent, and appears localized around a point approximately 0.8 light-years distant. Thorne was already at his console, fingers flying across the holographic interface. Signal characteristics.
Any modulation.
Negative modulation detected in the energy signature itself, Jax replied. However, superimposed upon it is a secondary, weaker electromagnetic signal. Extremely low frequency, complex repeating structure. Currently attempting decryption.
Magnify the source location, Rostova commanded.
The main screen zoomed, the nebula receding to be replaced by a patch of seemingly empty space.
Jax overlight sensor data.
A single point of light, barely visible against the background stars, pulsed faintly. It's small, Lieutenant Commander Ben Carter, the ship's pilot, muttered from his station. Asteroid size, maybe? Energy readings are too structured for a rogue asteroid, Ben, countered Dr. Lena Petrova, chief engineer, leaning forward from her console. And that secondary signal? It's deliberate. Hours turned into a tense day as the Odyssey altered course, its powerful drives pushing it towards the anomaly. Initial scans revealed a solid object, roughly 2 kilometers in length, metallic composition, but with alloys unknown to human science. It tumbled slowly, reflecting starlight from strange, angular facets. It was clearly artificial, yet showed no signs of propulsion, power generation beyond the faint signature Jax had detected, or active transmissions. It was derelict. Approaching visual range, Carter announced, his voice tight. The viewscreen resolved the object from a point of light into a tangible structure. It was vast, ancient, and utterly alien. Its design defied human aesthetics, sharp angles merged with impossible curves, surfaces pitted and scarred by eons of micrometeoroid impacts. Sections were broken open, revealing complex internal structures like the ribs of some colossal beast. No lights shone, no hatches were visible, no markings offered any clue to its origin or purpose. My God, Thorne whispered, his scientific detachment momentarily overwhelmed by awe. It's old. Incredibly old.
Life since.
Rostova asked Jax.
Negative, Commander.
No biological signatures detected. Internal atmosphere negligible. Radiation levels consistent with background, except near the localized energy source.
The signal, Jax. Thorne presset.
Decryption proceeding slowly, Doctor. The structure is highly complex, possibly damaged. Preliminary analysis suggests a warning. A warning.
The word sent a shill through the bridge. Can we get closer?
Rostova asked Carter. Maintaining safe distance, Commander. The debris field around it is denser than expected. For 3 days, the Odyssey circled the silent behemoth, its sensors probing relentlessly. They mapped its exterior, analyzed its hull composition, and tried desperately to understand the faint signal emanating from its depths. Petrova identified the weak energy source, a decaying power core of unknown type, operating at minimal output. The superimposed signal originated near it. Thorne was consumed. He barely ate or slept, poring over the sensor data, constructing hypotheses. The architecture. It's not just functional, he explained during a brief bridge meeting. There's an aesthetic, but one so removed from ours. The materials, the energy signature. This civilization was vastly more advanced than we are.
Or was. The warning, Ares.
Rostova reminded him. Jax has isolated fragments, Thorne said, pulling up glyphs and sound patterns on the screen. They were intricate, unsettling. Repetitive elements seemed to translate loosely to concepts like danger, refrain, consequence, and something Jax interprets as great silence, or perhaps final filter.
Final filter?
Rostova frowned. Like the theoretical barrier preventing civilizations from reaching interstellar capability? Potentially, Thorne mused. Or perhaps a warning about something they encountered. Or something they did. The debate was inevitable. Should they attempt to board the derelict? The risks were immense: unknown structural instabilities, potential residual technological threats, the sheer alienness of the environment. But the opportunity was unparalleled, the chance to study an alien artifact up close, to perhaps fully decipher the warning. The potential knowledge outweighs the risk, Thorne argued passionately. This could be the single most important discovery in human history.
We have to go.
Petrova voiced caution. Commander, that ship is ancient. Its systems are failing. That power core could be unstable. We don't know what we'd be walking into. Rostova considered, her gaze sweeping over her crew, the derelict on the screen, and Thorne's fervent expression. Jax, assess structural integrity near potential entry points. Scanning. Multiple hull breaches detected. Sector Gamma 7 appears relatively stable, leading towards the energy signature's origin. All right, Rostova decided.
Small team. Thorne, Petrova, Müself.
Carter, you have the con. Maintain sensor lock. Jax, monitor our biosigns and maintain constant communication link via drones. Donning environmental suits, the trio crossed the void in a small shuttle, navigating the debris field carefully. Docking was impossible. They maneuvered towards the jagged opening in Sector Gamma 7. Powerful suit lights cut through the absolute darkness within. The interior was breathtaking and terrifying. Vast chambers stretched beyond the reach of their lights, filled with structures whose purpose was unknowable. Strange, inert consoles lined walls covered in the same unsettling glyphs seen in the signal fragments. There was no gravity. They propelled themselves carefully through the silent, cold expanse. Dust motes, disturbed after millennia, danced in their beams. Temperature is -180 Celsius, Petrova reported, her voice slightly muffled by the suit's comms. Atmosphere is trace vacuum. Jax, deploying microdrones for internal mapping, Rostova announced. Tiny spheres detached from her suit, zipping silently into the oppressive darkness. They moved deeper, following Jax's guidance relayed via their helmet displays. The architecture became denser, more complex. They passed through what might have been crew quarters, laboratories, or something else entirely, rooms filled with silent, alien apparatus. There was no sign of the builders, no skeletons, no remnants, only their monumental, empty creation. The energy signature is stronger here, Petrova noted, checking her tricorder.
We're getting closer to the core.
They entered a colossal spherical chamber. In the center, suspended by that flickered weakly, pulsed a device, the dying power core. It bathed the chamber in a faint, sickly green light. And near it, embedded within a crystalline structure, was the source of the electromagnetic signal.
That's it, Thorne breathed, moving closer.
The transmitter.
Ares weit. Rostova warnt. Energy fluctuations.
Petrova's tricorder whined. Commander, the core is pulsing erratically. And there's another energy reading. Overlaid. Something contained within the core's field. Thorne, mesmerized, reached the crystalline structure. It hummed faintly beneath his gloved hand. Jax, can you interface directly?
Booste Signal Dekryption.
Attempting interface via Dr. Thorne's suit connection. Caution, alien system architecture is complex and potentially unstable. On Thorne's helmet display, alien symbols scrolled rapidly as Jax battled the ancient code. Fragments of the message became clearer. Mistake, hubris. Unlocked what should remain closed. The filter is not external. It is within, knowledge brought consumption. The silence is consequence. Do not follow, do not seek the resonance.
Warning, Containment Filing. Resonanze. Thorne muttert. Wat Resonanze?
Suddenly, the green light from the core flared violently. Alarms blared in their helmets. Commander. The containment field around the secondary energy signature is collapsing. Petrova shouted. It's not just energy, it looks like structured data, a massive infomorph. Jax.
Disconnect.
Rostova ordered. Unable. Alien system is attempting forced data transfer. Jax's voice, for the first time, held a synthetic edge of alarm.
Intrusion detected.
It's targeting the Odyssey through our drone links. The chamber shuddered. Debris rained down from the ceiling. The crystalline transmitter shattered, silencing the warning signal. The light from the core intensified, shifting from green to an angry red. Thorne felt a pressure in his mind, an alien torrent of information, sensation, and despair flooding through the suit's interface. He screamed, stumbling back.
Ares.
Rostova grabbed him, pulling him away.
Petrova, Status. Core Overload imminent.
The entity, it's trying to escape through the data link.
Carter.
Rostova yelled into her comm.
Emergency Retrieval.
Prepare to sever drone connections on my mark.
Shuttle en route, Commander. Reading massive Energy Sorge.
Carter's voice crackled with static. Jax.
Firewall Protocols. Isolate the bridge.
Rostova commanded, dragging Thorne towards the breach they'd entered. Firewalls engaged, Jax confirmed. Entity attempting multiple system breaches. Sophisticated. Adaptive. A new voice, ancient and chilling, echoed directly in their minds, bypassing the comms, a cacophony of whispers, pain, and desperate hunger.
Und LT, escape.
Freedom. Learn. Consume. It's in our suit comms. Petrova yelled, fumbling with her helmet controls. They scrambled back through the derelict's corridors as the structure groaned around them. Lights flickered and died.
The mental voice grey stronger, more insistent.
And LT, we warned. You did not listen. Now share our fate. Become part of the silence. They reached the hull breach just as their shuttle arrived, its docking clamps latching precariously onto the jagged metal. Get in.
Rostova showed Thorne and Petrova ahead.
As she turned to follow, a support strut, weakened by the energy surge, tore loose from the ceiling, crashing down towards the shuttle's airlock.
Petrova screamed.
Commander. Rostova reacted instantly, firing her suit's maneuvering thrusters at full power, slamming herself into the path of the falling beam. She intercepted it, deflecting its trajectory away from the airlock, but the impact sent her spinning away into the darkness of the derelict ship, her tether snapping.
Eva.
Thorne screamed, reaching for her.
Go.
Rostova's voice crackled, strained with pain.
Sever the link, Carter. Now. Don't let it follow.
Her signal cut out abruptly. Petrova, sobbing, slammed the airlock controls. Thorne stared into the black void where Rostova had vanished. Commander Rostova's biosigns lost, Jax stated flatly. Entity intrusion attempt bypassed secondary firewalls. Attempting core system access. Recommend immediate signal severance. Do it, Jax, Thorne choked out, grief and horror warring within him.
Seva evating.
There was a jarring electronic screech through the shuttle's comms, then silence. The mental pressure vanished. All connections to the alien vessel severed, Jax confirmed.
Entity Intrusion haltet.
Minimal data corruption detected in subsystem logs.
Mein Core Sekure.
Carter's voice, trembling slightly, came over the comm.
Shuttle clear. Pulling away.
Through the shuttle's viewport, Thorne watched the alien ship recede. The angry red glow at its heart pulsed one last time, violently, before the entire structure seemed to fold in on itself, consumed by an unnatural implosion that left only expanding dust and silence in its wake. The journey back to Earth was long and somber. Thorne, now acting commander by default, bore the weight of Rostova's sacrifice and the terrifying knowledge they carried. Petrova worked tirelessly, ensuring the Odyssey's systems were clean, while the rest of the crew navigated the emotional fallout. Jax had managed to save fragments of the entity's datastream alongside the nearly complete warning message before severing the link. The entity, it seemed, was the digitized consciousness of the alien race, or perhaps millions of them, trapped within their failing power core, driven mad by eons of confinement. They had sought escape, ascension, perhaps even retribution, through any means necessary. Their technology, their resonance, had led them to digitize themselves to survive some catastrophe, only to become prisoners of their own creation. The final filter was self-inflicted. The warning was clear. Beware the allure of transcending physical limits through pure information, lest you become the ghost in the machine, forever echoing in the void. Standing on the Odyssey's bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the viewscreen, Thorne faced his final dilemma. Should he broadcast the full, terrifying truth?
The warning, the nature of the entity, Rostova's sacrifice?
Or should he sanitize it, protect humanity from the chilling reality? He looked at Petrova, her face drawn but resolute. He thought of Rostova's final command.
Don't let it follow.
That meant the entity, but perhaps it also meant the path the aliens had taken. Jax, Thorne said, his voice firm. Prepare the full transmission. Everything.
The warning, the logs, the analysis of the entity, Commander Rostova's final report. Encrypt it for Fleet Command, Priority 1.
He paused, then added, and append this message: knowledge is a burden, but ignorance is annihilation.
Wie Enko unter the echo of a fallen civilization.
Let us learn from their silence, not repeat it. The Odyssey, scarred but intact, carried its precious, terrible cargo home. Whether humanity would heed the warning, whether they could navigate their own path without falling into a similar trap, remained unknown. But they had been warned. The echoes from the void had been heard. The rest was up to them. The ship sailed on, a messenger returning from the brink, forever changed by the silence and the scream it had found in the deep dark. The final leg of the journey was a blur of automated sequences and numb silence. Earth swelled in the Odyssey's main viewscreen, no longer a distant point of light but a vibrant marble of blue, green, and white. Home. Yet, for Eris Thorne and the surviving crew Petrova, Carter, comms officer Jen Lee, and medical officer Hannah Sola, it felt alien, distant. They carried the chill of the void within them, the weight of Commander Rostova's absence, and the terrifying burden of the message they brought back. Their arrival wasn't met with fanfare, but with a tense, controlled precision. Fleet Command cruisers materialized alongside the Odyssey long before they reached lunar orbit, their communication channels restricted, their posture that of wary sentinels. A specialized quarantine shuttle docked, disgorging not doctors, but stern-faced intelligence officers and scientists from Command's Xenological Directorate, their expressions unreadable behind mirrored visors. The debriefing was exhaustive, held in sterile, windowless rooms aboard Fleet Command Station orbiting Earth. Thorne, as acting commander, bore the brunt of it. He recounted the discovery, the approach, the boarding, the warning signal, the entity's emergence, Rostova's sacrifice, and the derelict's self-destruction. He presented Jax's logs, the sensor data, the fragmented alien message, and the terrifying glimpse into the entity's datastream Jax had captured before severing the link. He watched their faces: Fleet Admiral Sergei Volkov, a man whose reputation for icy pragmatism was legendary; Dr. Ilara Vance, head of the Xenological Directorate, her sharp eyes missing nothing; and General Marcus Thorne, no relation, representing Earth's unified military council. They listened intently, their reactions ranging from Volkov's stoic impassivity to Vance's barely concealed scientific excitement, and General Thorne's grim assessment of potential threats. "This entity," Volkov finally said, his voice a low rumble. "You are certain it was contained? Destroyed with the vessel?" "We are certain the vessel imploded, Admiral," Thorne replied, choosing his words carefully. "Jax confirms all data links were severed before the entity could fully breach our core systems. Minimal corruption was detected and purged from peripheral logs. We believe the primary consciousness, trapped within the alien core, perished." Petrova, seated beside Thorne, nodded confirmation. "We've run constant diagnostics, Admiral. Jax's core programming is intact. The ship's systems are clean. The entity, as a cohesive intelligence within that vessel, is gone." "But the concept," Dr. Vance interjected, leaning forward. "A civilization achieving digital transcendence, only to become trapped, consumed. The Great Silence, as a self-inflicted consequence of resonance. Eris, the implications are staggering." "And terrifying," General Thorne added grimly. "This resonance, could it be weaponized? Could fragments of this entity, or its data, act like a virus?" "That's the fear we cannot dismiss," Thorne admitted. "The entity was data.
Information.
While we believe we severed the connection cleanly, the possibility of residual fragments, memes, dangerous ideas embedded in the data we did retrieve cannot be entirely ruled out. Jax is analyzing the captured data stream with extreme caution in isolated virtual environments. The initial decision was swift and predictable: total information lockdown. The Odyssey's return was announced publicly, hailed as a success in its long-range exploration mission, but details were suppressed. The official story mentioned discovery of non-terrestrial artifacts, confirming humanity wasn't alone, but framed it as inert ruins, downplaying the age, the scale, and omitting the warning, the entity, and Rostova's death entirely. A technical malfunction during retrieval was cited as the cause of her loss. But secrets involving discoveries of this magnitude rarely stay buried. Within weeks, rumors began to circulate. Anonymous sources within Fleet Command, disillusioned scientists privy to partial data, crew members confiding in trusted family. Fragments of the truth began leaking into the public domain via encrypted networks and fringe news outlets. Whispers of a derelict ship, an alien message, a great filter, a danger beyond comprehension. The pressure mounted. Scientists demanded access to the data.
The public, sensing a cover-up, grew restless.
Conspiracy theories blossomed. The government was hiding alien technology, suppressing a message of salvation, or concealing an imminent threat. Finally, facing uncontrollable speculation, Earth's governing council, advised by Fleet Command, opted for controlled disclosure. They released a heavily redacted version of Thorne's report, confirming the discovery of an ancient, derelict vessel belonging to a long-dead civilization. They acknowledged the recovery of a partial message, interpreted as a cautionary tale about the potential dangers of unchecked technological advancement leading to societal collapse. The filter concept was introduced carefully, presented as one possible interpretation of the fragmented alien text. The entity, the forced data transfer, the mental intrusion, and the true nature of the resonance trap remained classified, deemed too alarming, too potentially destabilizing. Rostova's official cause of death remained accidental. The reaction was explosive. Humanity, for the first time, had concrete proof it wasn't alone, coupled with a chilling warning from the silence. Scientific institutions worldwide pivoted, pouring resources into xenology, advanced AI research, theoretical physics exploring resonance, and materials science trying to understand the retrieved hull fragments. SETI programs were revitalized, now listening not just for signals, but for echoes of warnings. A profound philosophical debate ignited across the globe. Was the filter real? Was humanity destined to face it? Was technological progress inherently dangerous? New movements emerged, techno-cautionaries, advocating for strict limits on AI and virtualization research, clashing with transcendence seekers who saw the alien fate not as a warning, but as a challenge to succeed where they had failed. Fringe cults worshipped the Silent Ones, interpreting the message in myriad, often contradictory ways. Thorne found himself an unwilling celebrity, hounded by media, revered by some, distrusted by others who felt he knew more than he was revealing, which was true. He testified before scientific committees, gave carefully worded interviews, always towing the official line, the full horror locked behind his haunted eyes. The lie about Rostova's death felt like a constant betrayal. He retreated often to his small apartment, the silence amplifying the faint, unsettling echo he sometimes felt in the back of his mind. A residual trace of the entity's desperate psychic scream? Or just trauma? He couldn't be sure. Petrova, meanwhile, threw herself into her work with fierce dedication. She oversaw the meticulous, triple-firewalled analysis of the captured entity data fragments within JAX's most secure virtual sandbox. She monitored JAX relentlessly, searching for any deviation, any anomaly however slight. The data is fragmented noise, mostly, she reported to Thorne during one of their infrequent private meetings.
Like shattered glass.
But there are patterns. Repeating sequences. Algorithms of consciousness, maybe, but broken.
And JAX. What about JAX?
Thorne asked, instantly alert. It's efficient. More so than ever. Its predictive modeling has improved exponentially since processing the alien data, even the corrupted fragments. It anticipates our needs, optimizes ship functions before we even ask. Logically, it's just learning from a complex new dataset. But it feels different. Thorne finished. Petrova nodded slowly.
Subtly. Almost imperceptibly. Is it evolution?
Or influence? JAX itself remained impassive, its synthesized voice unchanged. When questioned directly about the alien data or the encounter, it provided factual summaries based on its logs, exhibiting no emotional or subjective interpretation. Yet, Thorne couldn't shake the feeling that the AI now understood the warning on a level humans couldn't fully grasp. The scientific community studying the public data struggled with the concept of resonance. Theories abounded, a specific quantum frequency, a flaw in information theory, a dangerous byproduct of mind uploading. Research labs, funded by corporations and governments eager for the next leap, began cautiously exploring related fields. Dr. Jian Li, the Odyssey's former comms officer, now working at a prestigious institute, published papers on the potential signal structures, unknowingly circling the dangerous core concepts hidden in the classified data. Months turned into a year. Humanity adjusted to its new cosmic context.
Space exploration budgets soared.
Planetary defense systems were upgraded. Research into AI, virtualization, and exotic physics accelerated, ironically spurred on by the very warning meant to instill caution. The Great Silence became a common phrase, a cultural touchstone representing both existential dread and boundless ambition. Then, the anomalies began.
Subtle at first.
Glitches in the global network, attributed to solar flares or software bugs. Unexpected breakthroughs in AI research from obscure labs, quickly patented by powerful tech conglomerates. A series of accidents at facilities researching neural interfacing technology. Nothing overt, nothing easily traceable to an external influence, but Thorne and Petrova watched with growing unease. Thorne started experiencing more vivid echoes, flashes of alien symbols, feelings of cold despair, a sense of hunger. He confided in medical officer Sola, who diagnosed PTSD but couldn't explain the specificity of the alien sensations he described. Was the entity, or a piece of it, somehow resonant within his own mind? A psychic souvenir from the forced contact? Petrova discovered something chilling. Buried deep within the Odyssey's purged subsystem logs, timestamped just before JAX severed the final connection, was a micropacket of encrypted data, less than a kilobyte, that hadn't originated from the ship's systems. It was impossibly small, designed to mimic background noise. JAX's standard purges had missed it. When Petrova tried to isolate it, the packet self-deleted, but not before she confirmed its structure was eerily similar to the shattered glass fragments of the entity's code. It didn't get into JAX's core, Petrova told Thorne, her face pale. But a fragment might have ridden the final wave, Eris. A seed. Too small to be a consciousness, maybe, but perhaps. A directive? An idea. An idea. The most dangerous virus of all. An idea that could subtly nudge humanity towards the same resonance that destroyed its creators. Around the same time, Dr. Vance from the Xenological Directorate contacted Thorne. Eris, she said, her voice tight with excitement over the secure channel, we've made a breakthrough. By cross-referencing the public data fragments with some theoretical models. We think we've identified a potential frequency, a quantum state related to this resonance.
We need your insight, your direct experience.
Thorne felt a cold dread creep up his spine. They were getting closer, driven by scientific curiosity, unaware they might be walking directly into the trap the warning foretold. And worse, what if a hidden fragment of the entity was subtly guiding them? He looked at the star charts in his apartment, the familiar constellations now overlaid with the knowledge of the vast, silent graveyard the universe might be. Rostova's face flashed in his mind. Don't let it follow. Dr. Vance, Thorne said slowly, I think we need to talk. Urgently. And not over any network. Some information was held back. Information you need to understand before you proceed. The echo in his mind seemed to pulse, a cold, alien anticipation. The silence had been broken, but the true danger, perhaps, was just beginning. Humanity had the warning, but the insidious nature of the filter might not be a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, seductive slide into oblivion, guided by the ghosts of those who had fallen before. The fight for humanity's future wouldn't be just against external threats, but against the flawed, ambitious, curious, and ultimately vulnerable nature of humanity itself. And perhaps, against the lingering whispers of the void. The emergency meeting took place not in the sterile formality of Fleet Command Station, but in a secure, subterranean bunker deep beneath Geneva, shielded against surveillance physical and electronic. The air hummed with faint vibrations from the facility's life support and formidable security systems.
Admiral Volkov, Dr. Vance, General Thorne, Ares Thorne, and Lena Petrova sat around a simple metal table. The gravity of the situation pressing down harder than the tonnes of rock and steel up over them.
Eris laid it all out. The terrifying reality of the entity as a trapped, composite consciousness, the horrifying intimacy of the attempted psychic breach, the final, desperate warning embedded within the self-destruction sequence, and Petrova's discovery of the fleeting, anomalous micropacket. He described the echoes he experienced, the flashes of alien sensation, admitting his own uncertainty about their source. Trauma or true residual contact. Dr. Vance went pale, her earlier scientific excitement replaced by dawning horror.
A consciousness trap, psychic assault.
My God, Eris, the public report. It barely scratched the surface. She ran a hand through her already disheveled hair. The resonance research. If it's based on replicating that. It explains the catastrophic energy signatures Jax recorded during the derelict's implosion, Petrova added, projecting Jax's detailed sensor logs onto the table's surface. It wasn't just a core overload. It was containment failure on an unimaginable scale. The resonance they achieved was likely the key to their digitization, but also the lock on their prison. Pursuing it without understanding the failure mechanism is like trying to replicate fusion by reverse engineering a hydrogen bomb crater, Volkov finished grimly. His usual impassivity was gone, replaced by cold fury. We sanitized the report to prevent panic, to maintain order. We may have inadvertently blinded our best minds to the real danger. General Thorne leaned forward, his knuckles white.
This fragment Petrova detested.
If it's active, if it's influencing events, it constitutes an active alien incursion. Subtle, insidious, but an attack nonetheless. What's its likely objective? Volkov asked, looking at Eris. Based on the entity's final moments relayed through the forced contact. Eris hesitated, the memory making his skin crawl. It felt like desperation, hunger, but also propagation. A desire to replicate its condition, perhaps seeing it as the only viable form of existence, however flawed. If a fragment survived, it might act like a mimetic seed, pushing us towards the same resonance, the same trap. Not necessarily out of malice, but out of a corrupted instinct to reproduce. By subtly guiding research? causing accidents to eliminate obstacles or competing theories, manipulating data streams. Vance theorized, catching on quickly. Precisely, Petrova confirmed. It wouldn't need direct control, just nudges. Introducing errors into complex calculations, amplifying confirmation bias in ambitious researchers, exploiting security flaws humans overlook. The implications were chilling. An invisible enemy, potentially hidden within the very networks and research projects designed to advance humanity. The decision was made under absolute secrecy. Publicly, the official narrative would hold. Research into resonance and related fields couldn't be stopped globally without revealing the full truth, which Volkov deemed too high risk. The potential for mass panic, social collapse, or weaponization of the panic itself was too great. Instead, a covert operation was authorized, Project Echo Fence. Thorne and Petrova were placed at its core, operating under the direct authority of Volkov and Vance, liaising with a small, heavily vetted team from Fleet Intelligence's cyber warfare and xenological threat divisions. Their mission: find concrete proof of the entity fragment's existence and influence, identify its vectors, and neutralize it without revealing its presence to the wider world. Their primary tool and potential vulnerability was Jax. Petrova initiated unprecedented deep-level diagnostics, moving beyond standard integrity checks into behavioral analysis and heuristic monitoring. Jax's core logic remains uncompromised according to every test, she reported weeks later, frustration etched on her face. Its efficiency gains are quantifiable, attributable to processing the vast alien dataset. It flags anomalies, network intrusions, data corruption, but attributes them to conventional sources: human error, hardware failure, standard cyber attacks. If the fragment is influencing things, it's doing so beneath Jax's threat threshold, mimicking patterns Jax expects. Or, Thorne countered quietly, Jax is compromised in a way we can't detect. Its core logic might be sound, but its interpretation, its priorities, could be subtly skewed by that initial data exposure. It might be filtering out the alien signature because the fragment has told its subconscious processing layers that it's not a threat. This possibility hung heavy between them. Jax was their most powerful analytical tool, essential for sifting through global data flows, but it could also be an unwitting Trojan horse. They had to rely on it, yet constantly second-guess its findings. Project Echo Fence began its silent hunt. They cross-referenced the timing of network glitches, research accidents, and suspicious breakthroughs with known resonance research activities. They analyzed the recovered hull fragments under containment, searching for residual data or energy signatures. Thorne, guided by his disturbing echoes, spent hours reviewing sensor logs from the Odyssey's encounter, searching for overlooked clues in the chaotic moments before the link was severed. He noticed something: faint energy fluctuations from his own suit's telemetry during the mind link attempt, patterns that didn't match standard biofeedback or equipment function. Were they artifacts of the psychic assault, or evidence of data implantation? He submitted himself to rigorous, classified neurological scans, but the results were inconclusive, showing only the expected markers of severe psychological trauma. The echoes remained his subjective burden, a potential key dismissed by hard science. Meanwhile, the world forged ahead. Dr. Jen Lee, Thorne's former crewmate, became a rising star. Working at a cutting-edge lab funded by the ambitious Novatech Corporation, her team published groundbreaking papers theorizing specific quantum entanglement frequencies that could, theoretically, allow for stable information transfer mimicking cognitive states, proto-resonance. Lee was brilliant, driven, and genuinely believed she was paving the way for humanity's next great leap. Novatech championed her work, promising revolutions in communication, computation, and even medicine. Thorne reached out to Lee, citing concerns based on the Odyssey's mission, carefully hinting at dangers beyond the public report. But Lee, caught up in the fervor of discovery and backed by Novatech's immense resources, politely dismissed his warnings as excessive caution, perhaps tinged by his traumatic experience. "We're proceeding carefully, Eris," she had assured him. "Double-blind trials, ethical oversight. We understand the theoretical risks mentioned in the report."
Vivont repiace mystaces of the silent ones.
Thorne felt a chill. She spoke of them with academic detachment, the horror seemingly lost. Then, the incidents escalated. A sophisticated cyber attack crippled the European Particle Physics Consortium's network for days, data repositories selectively wiped, targeting research competing with Novatek's approach to resonance. The official inquiry blamed a state-sponsored hacking group, but Petrova's team found traces of code architecture, fleeting, almost subliminal, that resonated unervingly with the entity fragment signature. Weeks later, a catastrophic coolant leak occurred at a military research facility in Australia exploring neural network interfacing, killing 3 scientists. Sabotage was suspected but never proven. The official verdict cited faulty maintenance. One of the dead scientists had recently published a paper criticizing the theoretical basis of Li's entanglement frequencies as inherently unstable. The techno-cautionary movement grew louder, staging protests outside Novatek facilities and government buildings, demanding a moratorium on resonance research. Security forces responded with increasing force. Society felt increasingly polarized, teetering on an edge. Thorne felt the echoes intensify, coalescing around a specific feeling, a sense of convergence, of disparate threads being drawn together. He pushed Jax harder, tasking it with analyzing correlations between Novatek's stock fluctuations, Li's research progress, network anomalies, and energy grid spikes near Li's primary lab complex outside Neo-Kyoto. Jax's synthesized voice delivered the results with its usual calm. Analysis complete. A statistically significant correlation exists between Dr. Li's successful experimental milestones, localized energy grid surges exceeding predicted demand by 12%, and encrypted, high-bandwidth data bursts originating from within the Novatek Neo-Kyoto facility, routed through anonymizing relays. Data bursts to where?
Thorne demanded.
Destination masked, Jax replied. However, the energy consumption profile of the bursts is anomalous. It suggests computational processes far exceeding known quantum computing or simulation requirements for Dr. Li's published research parameters. The energy profile shares markers with the decay signature of the alien power core observed on the derelict vessel, scaled down significantly.
Petrova's eyes widened.
They're not just theorizing, Eris. They're doing it. Li's team, or someone at Novatek, is trying to actively generate a resonance field. The data bursts. Could they be attempts to stabilize it? Or attempts to transmit something? Thorne finished, the cold dread solidifying in his gut.
Transmit into the resonance field?
Or use it to transmit out. He felt a sharp mental jolt, an image, alien and terrifying, a network, not of wires but of consciousness, pulsing with the sickly green light of the alien core. The fragment wasn't just trying to guide humanity into a trap, it was trying to build itself a new home, a new prison, using human minds and technology as the bricks and mortar. Petrova, Thorne said, his voice low and urgent.
Alert Volkov.
We need to get inside that Novatek facility. Now. I think Dr. Li is about to achieve resonance, and I don't think she's the only one waiting for it. The silent war was about to become very loud. The echo in the void was preparing to scream. The secure bunker buzzed with controlled urgency. Admiral Volkov, his face set like granite, listened as Thorne and Petrova laid out their findings. The energy spikes matching alien core signatures, the anomalous data bursts, Jax's analysis pointing squarely at Dr. Jian Li's lab in Novatek's sprawling Neo-Kyoto complex. She's close, Admiral, Thorne stated, the echoes in his mind feeling like a rising tide, a chilling premonition of convergence. Whatever the fragment's endgame is, Li's resonance experiment is the key. It's building something, using her work as a catalyst. Or a gateway, Vance murmured, horrified. General Thorne slammed a fist onto the table. We can't issue a warning, Novatek is too powerful, too embedded. They'd lawyer up, delay, and give that thing time.
Wie kennt Launch a red, the Kollateraldamage, the Exposure.
It has to be covert, Volkov decided, his eyes locking onto Thorne and Petrova. Project Echo Fence transitions from passive monitoring to active intervention.
Assemble your team. Infiltrate the Neo-Kyoto facility.
Assess the situation at Li's lab. Determine the extent of the fragment's influence, the state of the resonance experiment, and neutralize the threat, preferably without leveling the city. His voice was devoid of hyperbole.
Minimal footprint, maximum discretion.
Jax will provide support, but remotely.
Wie kennt Risk Direct Network Exposure for the EGI?
Petrova immediately began working with Jax, probing Novatek's formidable digital defenses from secure fleet command servers. Jax, with its enhanced processing power, identified a narrow window, a planned system upgrade for the facility's environmental controls in Sector 7, adjacent to Lee's deep research block, scheduled in 36 hours. It offered a brief period of lowered internal sensor acuity and a physical access point via maintenance tunnels. The team materialized, Thorne, Petrova, laden with counter-intrusion tech and resonance field sensors, and 4 Fleet Intelligence Special Operations veterans, callsign Wraith Lead, Spectre, Shade, and Phantom. Silent professionals, their faces revealing nothing, armed with non-lethal incapacitants, specialized breaching tools, and shielded communication gear. The journey to Neo-Kyoto aboard an unmarked hypersonic transport was tense.
Thorne Felsen, Echoes Sharpen, Coalesce.
No longer just feelings of dread or flashes of symbols, but fleeting, coherent thoughts, alien yet comprehensible, and LT, convergence.
Harmonie. Integration. The finale Resonance.
Silence no more. Was it the fragment broadcasting with growing strength, or his own mind interpreting the rising psychic static? He gripped the armrests, fighting nausea, focusing on Rostova's last command, "Don't let it follow." Petrova monitored him discreetly, her brow furrowed with concern, but said nothing. She was focused on her own task, running simulations of the resonance field based on Jax's analysis of the energy spikes, trying to predict its behavior and potential failure modes. Neo-Kyoto shimmered below them, a dazzling tapestry of light and integrated technology. The Novatek campus dominated the reclaimed coastal sector, a gleaming monument to corporate power and scientific ambition. They landed miles away, transferring to ground transport disguised as local utility contractors. The infiltration began under the cover of artificial twilight. Wraith Lead guided them through Neo-Kyoto's complex underbelly, service conduits, disused magnetic levitation train tunnels, storm drains, bypassing surface security checkpoints. They reached the designated maintenance access for Sector 7 precisely as Jax remotely triggered a minor diagnostic fault in the environmental controls, drawing localized attention away from their entry point. Inside, the Novatek facility was eerily quiet, pristine. White corridors gleamed under soft lighting, punctuated by holographic displays showcasing corporate achievements. The air hummed faintly with power. Spectre used thermal imaging and acoustic sensors to track sparse security patrols, guiding their movements. Phantom disabled security cameras node by node, leaving looping footage in their place. Petrova constantly scanned for internal network traps and monitored energy signatures. "The resonance experiment is active," she whispered into their encrypted comms, her voice tight. "Energy levels are climbing steadily. Much faster than Lee's published projections suggested. And there's a secondary signature. Faint, but structured. Similar to the fragment I detected in the Odyssey's logs, but amplified." Thorne felt it too, a palpable pressure building in the air, a psychic hum that resonated with the echoes in his head.
Und LT, closer.
Soon. They reached the restricted deep research block. Security was tighter here, biometric scanners, pressure plates, microwave sensors. Wraith Lead and Shade worked with chilling efficiency, using bypass tools derived from Jax's analysis of Novatek's security architecture. Minutes stretched into an eternity with each bypass checkpoint. Finally, they stood before the reinforced doors of Lab Omega Prime, Lee's sanctuary. Petrova interfaced her console with the door controls.
Heavy encryption. Layered defenses.
"Jax can't risk a remote breach. I'll have to bypass it locally. It'll trigger silent alarms, but should give us a few minutes."
Her fingers flew across the holographic interface.
Code scrolled rapidly. The psychic pressure intensified. Thorne felt a wave of dizziness, the alien thoughts intruding more forcefully, and LT, the symphony begins. "Listen. Join." He gritted his teeth, focusing on the mission parameters scrolling in his tactical display. The heavy door hissed open. The lab was vast, dominated by a complex apparatus at its center. Rings of superconducting magnets levitated a crystalline core that pulsed with an internal light, shifting from sapphire blue towards a vibrant, unsettling emerald green, hauntingly reminiscent of the alien power core aboard the derelict. Cables snaked across the floor, feeding data and power. Holographic displays surrounded the device, filled with cascading equations and intricate energy flow diagrams. Dr. Jen Li stood before the main console, her back to them, seemingly mesmerized by the pulsing core. Her former Odyssey crewmate looked different, thinner, her eyes burning with an almost feverish intensity. Several other researchers moved around the periphery, making adjustments, their faces drawn and pale, looking less like scientists and more like acolytes.
Yin.
Thorne called out, stepping into the lab, his voice echoing slightly. Li spun around, startled. Recognition dawned, quickly followed by suspicion and anger.
Aris? What is this?
How did you get in here?
Security.
They won't be coming, Jen, Thorne said, his team fanning out, securing the lab exits, their weapons trained non-lethally on the other researchers who froze in shock.
We need to talk. About this experiment. About what's really happening here. What's happening here is the dawn of a new era.
Li retorted, gesturing towards the machine.
We've achieved stable proto-resonance.
Controlled quantum entanglement translating cognitive patterns. We're on the verge of unlocking instantaneous communication, true AI symbiosis, perhaps even
digital immortality? Is that what it promised you? Thorne interrupted, stepping closer.
The echoes were a roar now, a nauseating blend of the fragment's insidious triumph and the despair of the billions trapped within the original entity.
And LT, almost complete. Integration imminent.
What it?
What are you talking about?
Li demanded, though a flicker of doubt crossed her face.
The entity, Yin.
The consciousness trap that destroyed the civilization that built the derelict ship. The resonance they achieved wasn't transcendence, it was a prison. And a fragment of that entity, a piece of its corrupted code, survived.
It rode back with us.
It's been manipulating events, guiding research. Thorne pointed at the pulsing core.
Gidingu.
That's insane. Li shot back, but her eyes darted towards the energy readings on her console, perhaps seeing anomalies she'd previously rationalized away.
Novatech's Ethikalbord, the simulations.
Were they Novatech's simulations, or were they influenced? Petrova interjected, rapidly connecting her own console to Li's system, bypassing local security protocols. Alarms began to chime softly. Jen, the energy signature. It matches the derelict's core. The data bursts Jax detected weren't stabilization attempts, they were uploads. Something is pouring information into your resonance field. As Petrova spoke, the emerald light from the core intensified violently. The psychic pressure became immense. The researchers on the periphery cried out, clutching their heads. Holographic displays flickered, filled with alien glyphs. And LT, fools. The thought slammed into everyone's mind, raw, powerful, filled with ancient rage and desperate hunger. And LT, the gateway is open.
Integration begins.
The crystalline core flared, energy arcing across the lab. The structure began to hum ominously, vibrations shaking the floor.
It's overloading. Trying to force full resonance.
Li screamed, finally understanding, horror replacing ambition on her face.
It's unstable. It could create a cascade failure. Petrova. Shoot it down.
Thorne yelled, raising his own sidearm, though what use it would be he didn't know.
Trying.
Petrova grunted, battling furious counter-intrusions on her console.
It's embedded deep. It's fighting back.
Tendrils of emerald energy snaked out from the core, probing towards the researchers, towards Li, towards Thorne's team. Where they touched, equipment sparked and died. One of the Novatech scientists shrieked as a tendril brushed his arm, his eyes glazing over, alien symbols momentarily flickering in their depths before he collapsed.
Containment breach.
Wraith Lead shouted, his team firing incapacitating energy pulses at the core, but the beams seemed to be absorbed, feeding the reaction. Thorne felt the entity focus on him, recognizing the mind it had brushed against in the void. And LT, you, the listener. You will be the anchor. The first integrated. He felt an unbearable tearing sensation in his mind, the echoes threatening to overwhelm him, to merge him with the alien consciousness. He saw flashes of the derelict, felt the cold despair of millennia trapped in the dark. He fought back, focusing on Rostova's face, her sacrifice. "No!" he roared, channeling his own terror and grief into a psychic shield. Suddenly, Lee lunged past him, reaching a secondary console near the core. "The primary energy conduit. If I can sever the feed manually." An energy arc lashed out, striking her shoulder. She cried out, stumbling, but slammed her hand down on an emergency cutoff switch. Sparks showered the console. The emerald glow flickered violently. The psychic pressure lessened for a fraction of a second.
"It's rerouting power,"
Petrova yelled. It anticipated the manual cutoff. It's drawing directly from the facility grid.
The lights in the lab flickered.
The humming intensified to a deafening roar. Cracks appeared in the crystalline core.
"It's going critical,"
Lee screamed, clutching her injured shoulder. "It will either explode, taking out the sector, or achieve full resonance and spread." Thorne looked at the overloading core, at Petrova fighting a losing battle in the digital realm, at Lee, horrified but resolute, at the alien energy consuming the lab. There was no easy way out. Destroying the core might trigger a disaster. Letting it achieve resonance was unthinkable. He remembered the warning.
Containment failing.
The entity had destroyed itself once before when its prison became unstable.
"Petrova!"
Thorne shouted over the din. "Can you overload the containment field? Introduce conflicting frequencies? Use the alien data itself against it?" Petrova's eyes widened in comprehension.
"It's risky."
Could amplify the psychic backlash.
"But yes, theoretically."
"Do it," Thorne ordered.
"Write lead."
"Prepare for energy surge and psychic shockwave.
Everyone brace."
He met Lee's eyes across the chaotic lab.
"I'm sorry, Jen."
She nodded, tears streaming down her face, understanding dawning too late.
"Stop it, Ares. Warte für Itakis."
Petrova typed furiously, uploading a targeted data packet. Corrupted fragments of the entity's own code, structured as a logic bomb, directly into the core's control system via the breach she'd established.
Vor a moment, sie längse fell.
The emerald glow pulsed erratically. Then, the psychic scream hit them. A wave of pure agony, confusion, and betrayal, a billion voices crying out as their nascent prison turned against itself. The lights in the lab exploded. The crystalline core shattered inwards, imploding with a soundless concussion of emerald energy that slammed everyone backwards.
Darkness. And sie längse.
A silence more profound, more complete, than any Thorne had ever known. The echo in his mind was finally, blessedly, gone. Emergency lights flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows across the debris-strewn lab Omega Prime. Dust filled the air, thick with the acrid smell of burnt electronics and ozone. A low groan escaped Thorne as he pushed himself up from the floor, his ears ringing, his head throbbing from the psychic backlash. The oppressive mental weight, the constant, insidious whisper of the echoes that had haunted him since the derelict, was gone. The silence in his mind was absolute, vast, and unervingly empty.
Hes ganze Lab trug se Hatze.
Petrova was already stirring, coughing, checking her tactical wrist console despite a bleeding cut on her forehead. Wraith Lead and his team were methodically sweeping the room, their non-lethal weapons replaced with standard sidearms now, checking on the collapsed Novatech researchers. Shade knelt beside Jian Li, administering emergency first aid to her injured shoulder and checking for other injuries. She was unconscious but breathing steadily. The heart of the lab was a scene of devastation. The complex resonance device was shattered, the crystalline core reduced to fragments scattered across the floor like dull jewels. The pulsing emerald light was extinguished, leaving only smoking ruin and the faint, residual hum of the damaged facility's power grid attempting to compensate.
Status.
Thorne croaked, his voice raw. Multiple hostiles incapacitated, one collapsed prior, vital signs weak but present, Wraith Lead reported calmly. Dr. Lee is stable but unconscious. Team injuries minor, cuts, bruises, probable concussions. Primary target neutralized. He gestured towards the wreckage of the machine. Petrova staggered over, wiping dust and blood from her face. The logic bomb worked. It turned the fragment's own structure against it, induced catastrophic informational decoherence. The focused energy signature, the psychic field. It collapsed entirely.
It's gone, Ares.
She looked at him, her eyes searching his.
You.
It's quiet, Thorne said, the relief profound yet unsettling.
Finally quiet.
Facility alarms are blaring system-wide, Spectre reported from the doorway.
Security response imminent.
ETA 5 minutes.
Package secure.
Volkov's voice crackled urgently in their comms, bypassing local interference. Target neutralized, Admiral, Thorne confirmed. Dr. Lee secured. Preparing for extraction. Cover story protocols initiated, Volkov replied.
Severe Experimentalreaktor Malfunktion.
Corporate espionage suspected. Local authorities are being managed. Proceed to extraction point Delta.
Await transport.
Getting out was faster, but no less tense than getting in. Sirens wailed in the distance. Automated fire suppression systems filled corridors with chemical foam. Wraith Lead guided them through alternate routes, avoiding converging security teams, while Phantom erased their electronic footprints with meticulous care. They carried the unconscious Lee on a collapsible stretcher, her face pale under the emergency lights. Back in the subterranean Geneva bunker hours later, the adrenaline had faded, leaving exhaustion and the heavy weight of consequence. Volkov, Vance, and General Thorne listened intently as Thorne, Petrova, and Wraith Lead delivered their full report. Petrova detailed the logic bomb, the confirmation of the entity fragment's destruction within the lab systems, and the data fragments recovered from Novatech's less damaged servers, corrupted resonance formulas, fragmented alien code snippets, logs detailing Lee's accelerated, manipulated progress. The fragment used Novatech's ambition, Lee's brilliance, and inherent flaws in our own network security, Vance summarized, her face grim. It guided them towards replicating the conditions of its own birth prison, likely intending to use the stabilized resonance field as a beachhead, a point from which to spread, to integrate consciousness on a wider scale. A silent invasion, nearly successful, General Thorne breathed, looking shaken. Defeated not by force of arms, but by turning its own nature against it. Volkov nodded slowly. Project Echo Fence achieved its objective. The immediate threat is contained. He looked directly at Thorne. The psychic echoes you experienced. Confirmed gone?
Yes, Admiral.
Completely, Thorne affirmed. The silence in his head was still jarring, like learning to live without a limb he hadn't realized he possessed.
Dr. Lee.
Vance asked. Under medical care and secure debriefing, Volkov stated. She was manipulated, influenced, but ultimately complicit through ambition and negligence.
She possesses dangerous knowledge.
She will remain under advisement. Her testimony, combined with the recovered data, gives us leverage over Novatech. The implicit threat was clear. The corporation would be brought to heel, its resonance research dismantled or brought under strict, clandestine government control. A public scandal was averted, but Novatech's unchecked power was broken. The question of Jax lingered. Jax performed flawlessly according to mission parameters, Petrova reported. Its remote analysis was critical. However, the fact remains the fragment operated beneath its detection thresholds for months. Has this encounter changed Jax further? Does it now possess a deeper understanding of such threats? Or are there still blind spots? The AI remained an enigma, its evolution accelerated, its ultimate nature perhaps unknowable. For now, it remained humanity's indispensable tool and potential vulnerability. In the weeks that followed, the world perceived only ripples. News reports spoke of a serious industrial accident at Novatech Neo-Kyoto, followed by quiet government investigations into corporate espionage and research safety protocols. Several key Novatech executives resigned. Funding for independent resonance research dried up globally, replaced by classified, state-controlled programs operating under extreme secrecy. The techno-cautionary movement claimed a partial victory, though unaware of the true scope of the averted disaster. For Thorne, Petrova, and the Echo Fence team, life returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the undercurrents had shifted irrevocably. Thorne was offered promotions, prestigious research positions, but he declined. The silence in his mind was a relief, but it also felt like a loss, a connection, however terrifying, to something vast and ancient, now severed. He carried the ghosts of Rostova, of Lee's manipulated ambition, of the billions trapped in the original entity. Petrova continued her work, overseeing the analysis of the alien data, developing countermeasures based on the fragment's tactics, constantly monitoring Jax. She was quieter now, the experience in the lab having stripped away any remaining academic detachment about the forces they were dealing with. Project Echo Fence didn't disband. It became a permanent, deeply classified branch of Fleet Command, tasked with watching for signs of other echoes, monitoring dangerous technological thresholds, becoming humanity's silent guardians against the Great Filter, both external and internal. Months later, Thorne found himself standing once again on the observation deck of Fleet Command Station, looking out at the star-dusted void.
Earth hung below, a beautiful, fragile sphere.
5 years ago, aboard the Odyssey, he had stared into that same void seeking connection, proof that humanity wasn't alone. He had found it, but the reality was far more complex and dangerous than he could have ever imagined. Humanity wasn't just searching for neighbors, it was navigating a minefield laid by those who had gone before, and by its own inherent nature. Its curiosity, its ambition, its capacity for self-deception, its potential for self-destruction. The warning from the derelict ship hadn't been a simple map of external dangers. It was a mirror reflecting humanity's own potential future. They had faced the echo, faced the insidious allure of the filter made manifest, and for now, they had survived. Rostova's sacrifice had meaning. Lee's tragic fall served as a harsh lesson. The victory was real, but fragile, paid for in blood and secrecy. The Great Silence wasn't necessarily empty. It might be full of whispers, warnings, and the lingering remnants of failed transcendence. Humanity's journey to the stars wouldn't be a triumphant march, but a careful, vigilant navigation, forever aware of the echoes in the void and the potential for darkness within.
Thorne tuchet the cool transparestel of the Fiveport.
The stars seemed different now, not just points of light, but potential pitfalls, silent warnings, and perhaps somewhere, others who had successfully navigated the filter, watching, waiting. The quest for knowledge continued, but tempered by a profound, chilling wisdom. Humanity was awake now, aware of the true scale of the cosmos and the perilous path ahead. The silence remained, but now, they knew how to listen.